Greetings friends, the story of Diablo Immortal takes place between the ending of Diablo 2 Lords of Destruction and the beginning of Diablo 3. Quite some time has passed between the two chapters. 20 years is no joke, and Diablo Immortal was meant to fill this void. First of all, the naming. The Immortals are a knightly order of warriors that protects our realm named Sanctuary from demons. Now, when the World Stone is torn to shards and Sanctuary is no longer invisible for the outer world, the domain of the mortals needs its defenders more than ever. The story of the Immortals goes back to a Nephilim named Deidassa. In the days of Nephilims, she crafted the Eternal Crown, a powerful artifact bestowing its wearer with great strength. The crown was meant to be given to the leader of the Immortals, so she gifted it to her son named Cain, who became the first war chief of the order. However, Deidassa knew that every political power needs a rival, so she assigned her daughter Akiba as the leader of the Shadows, the opposing party that was meant to keep the Immortals under pressure. If, or when, the Immortals get weak, soft or lazier succumb to charms of red leather demonic ladies on high heels. The Shadows were to take the crown and their place. The Shadows then become the Immortals, and vice versa, and so on forever. For the record, this way of things shares some similarities with the ending of Diablo 3, where Tyrael gets so excited with our power, but at the same time is concerned that something horrible would happen should we, such a mighty being, turn out to be a crappy person. Deidassa had the same concerns about her son and the Immortals in general, and basically everyone, I guess, so she burdened the Immortals with the constant presence of her daughter and the Shadows, and the whole system worked smoothly. When Cain and his mortals appeared weak and soft, Akiba and the Shadows seized the crown. The Shadows became the Immortals were demoted to the Shadows, and this is the background of Diablo Immortal. The players may join the former or the latter and slay each other in PvP. The storyline will come to an end eventually, but the rivalry between those two factions is eternal. The very existence of the Immortals in the universe of Diablo is an issue in itself, if you ask me, but I will elaborate on it later in the video. The main storyline is not related to this Immortals hustle directly, yet it is also centers around the destruction of the World Stone. Its shards are scattered around the world, and as we remember from chatting with Kadali in the third game, they are quite precious. In Diablo 3 we gather them in hundreds, but in Diablo Immortal the currency rate has skyrocketed, so now there are just 4 of them in the entire game. Each one contains magic that grants might that even the Demon Lords couldn't dream of, which makes us look at Kadala at a different angle. There are many volunteers to get their hands on at least one shard of the World Stone, and the most prominent among them is a demon named Skarn. After we slay Diablo, smash his soulstone and leave his corpse in the hell in the second game, Skarn finds the body and merges with it. Now, why is Skarn so desperate in finding the shards? What would he do with such power? Before the release of Diablo Immortal, it was announced that Skarn was one of Diablo's lieutenants and that he intended to resurrect his master. However, Skarn turned out to be way more vile. He opted to use the stone to cleanse all people and erase their angelic nature. As we know, people are the successors of Nephilims, who were the children of both angels and demons, so Skarn desired to wipe out their angelic essence so that only the demonic half is left. The shards of the World Stone apparently can do that. As of now, though, Skarn has no shards at all. To accelerate his search, he founds his own little cult. As far as this is the 4th game in the series, one can tell that there are more Satanists in Sanctuary than non-Satanists. So here we are, a character who is new to the story arrive in the town of Wortham that we remember from Diablo 3. We follow the call to arms. The town is raided by monsters and cultists. They abduct people while searching for the shard and even manage to find it. And this is the moment when we step in, repel the attack, and seize the shard from demonic minions. We bring the fragment to a local scholar named Deckard Cain, who tasks us with a questline of spending 7 hours or so and locating other shards of the World Stone before evil beings get them. The next shard is somewhere near. It was taken by a necromancer lady named Lethus, and her former mentor, and necromancer Zul from Diablo 2, offers us his help in finding and dealing with her. What Lethus wants most of all is to get her hands on the soul of Leoric, the Skeleton King. With the soul and with the shard, Lethus believes in becoming the greatest necromancer so that even Rathma would envy her. The whereabouts of Leoric, though, are unknown. To find him, Lethus gets help from his wife's spirit. To find his wife's spirit, she gets help from her former servant. To find Leoric's wife's former servant, she gets help from the Wortham guards. And we follow the same pattern. Kill Leoric for the 5th time in the series to outrun Lethus and finally face her in a showdown. After her defeat, Lethus explodes, leaving a wet stain and the shard. Zul explains that Lethus is not dead for real, it was all her necromancy trickery, but we are fine with that, the shard is with us. The next shard is in possession of the Countess, who somehow is still alive even after the events of Diablo 2. With the fragment of the World Stone, the Countess and her forces terrorize the rogue encampment. This time we get help from the druid named yl'nira. yl'nira offers to hold a ride at the Tree of Inephus. You know, that very tree that gave us the scroll to teleport to Tristram and save Deckard Cain in Diablo 2. The ritual should help us somehow. We do errands for yl'nira and gather all necessary ingredients for the rite. And yes, indeed, the tree gives us a solid advice. The vitality of the Countess is supported by a huge predatory monster flower, the Bloody Rose, so to kill the Countess we need to deal with the rose first. Unfortunately, the tree ride goes not completely as planned and yl'nira dies, but his sacrifice is not in vain. Now we have a plan. We kill the flower and then we kill the Countess. Shard number 3 is back at Cain's, so we decide that 3 stones are quite enough to start smashing them. Alas, Deckard fails to do so on his own, and he sends us to the archives of Zoltun Kulle, the Horadrim from Diablo 3, in the search for answers. What should we do? To find something in archives, one needs to find archives. They are who knows where in the desert, so we rush there hoping for the best. The best doesn't happen, so we ask the locals, mostly a mob queen named Tabri, how to get to the library. Since the developers had to stretch the campaign for at least a few hours, Tabri proposes a deal. We bring her the Scepter of Vahir, the royal artifact split into 3 pieces, and she gets us to the archives. Thus, we do some more errands, collecting the scepter's pieces and bring Tabri the reconstructed stuff. She becomes an undisputed heir to her lands, gives us a promise to use her power for repelling local bandits, and takes us to the archives of Zoltun Kulle. There, we meet a simulacrum of Zoltan named the Curator. It is an animated sand creature that keeps order in the archives. First, the Curator treats us as a thief, but we describe the importance of our quest, so he agrees to help us. For so many years without visitors, the library has fallen in a complete decay, and lots of magic gears that ensured its operation need to be fixed. By us, of course. Besides, the Curator is running out of batteries, so we have to locate 3 missing runes to charge him. After that, we find out that the core which powers up the archives is also out of juice, and without it we won't learn what we came for. The core can be charged with the vitality of local golems. They share similar technologies. We find and deal with the toughest and meanest golem in the area and use its remains to kickstart the core. Eventually, the Curator opens the portal to a simulated realm of the long-standing showdown of Zoltun Kulle and Tal Rasha versus Baal, when the Horadrim were restoring order in Sanctuary and imprisoning the prime evils in the Soul Stones for the first time. We reenact the battle, defeat Baal, and eavesdrop on Kulle and Tal Rasha, who claim that to chip a piece of the World Stone, namely Soul Stones are made of these pieces, one needs a weapon of an Archangel. This is our major takeaway from visiting the archives. Now, let me remind you that in Diablo 2 we used the hammer for the Hellforge to smash soul stones of Mephisto and Diablo, so we can do it without a weapon of an Archangel. Moreover, Deckard Cain knows this for sure. He was there and took part in destroying the stones. He saw the way it was done with no Archangel's weaponry. And even more so, if the World Stone can be cracked with angelic weapons, why was all the hassle with the Hellforge in Diablo 2? Tyrael has been with us since the end of Act 2. If all we needed to smash the shard of the World Stone was the Sword of Tyrael, why didn't he crush the Soul Stone of Mephisto as soon as we got it, sending us to look for the Hellforge instead? And we abstain from these questions, pretend that all these never happened, and talk to the curator. He says that there are two angelic weapons he's aware of: yl'nira, the Sword of Tyrael, and yl'nira, the Dagger of some angel. However, the curator claims that Tyrael cherishes his sword too much and won't give it away, so we should look for yl'nira. Really? Tyrael won't lend his sword to destroy the cursed shards of the World Stone. This is the insurmountable obstacle, isn't it? How about the fact that Tyrael was evaporated 5 years ago in an explosion of the World Stone, and that he would be reborn only at the beginning of Diablo 3, 15 years after Diablo Immortal? How about that? Gosh, this is a mess. Alright, we embark on a mission to search for yl'nira, which, as the curator told us, is kept on the island of Bylfen in the temple of Namari. Namari was a Nephilim who became famous for defeating Sargoth, a fellow Nephilim who allied Hell. On our way to the temple, we meet Jean the wizard. Jean summons the spirit of Namari, who explains that this is not a temple but a prison, and not for her, but for Sargoth. He mutated into a monster and grows stronger and stronger with time, and unless stopped, he would break free. Sadly, we cannot simply enter the temple and slay Sargoth. The pirates stole 3 magic beacons which power the magic doors, so first we ransack local filibusters and regain beacons, and then we return them to Namari and gain access to the prison temple. Inside we kick Sargoth's butt and find the angelic dagger yl'nira. At this time, some spirits contact us and encourage to know more about the immortals and the shadows, and should we get interested, join their eternal bustle, but it is not relevant to the main plot. What is relevant is that we bring yl'nira to Deckard Cain and destroy 3 shards with the dagger. Our character and Deckard are laughing, the players are cringing, but the game is only halfway done. Diablo Immortal follows the classic pattern in which the storyline is split between 2 major problems. Halfway to the finale we handle the first problem and switch onto another one. This is the way all Fallout games are done, for example. When 3 shards of the World Stone are zeroed, we are told of the 4th and the most problematic one of them. It is located somewhere on Mount Zavain, near Mount Arid. Mount Zavain is populated with monks that, according to an old sanctuary tradition, all speak with a Russian accent. Monks reassure us that the shard is safe in their temple, and the main concern is the surge of raids by the Hazra, mango demons. They've been harassing monks for some time now, and we agree to intervene. Soon we find out that Hazra hordes obey the command of Skarn as well, looking for the shard, and are led by an evil monk named Dravik. Dravik lost his brother and allied with Skarn, promising to retrieve the shard in exchange for reuniting with his brother. With aid from demons, Dravik storms the temple and captures the shard. Some decent nun stabs him in the process, but the power of the stone apparently resurrects him. And with the stone in his pocket, Dravik teleports to the frozen tundra from the 5th act of Diablo 2. So we pursue Dravik and the shard to the tundra. And please don't call it tundra, it's tundra. We find ourselves in the ruins of Seshron, the location well known to players from previous installments, which is now occupied with ghosts of dead barbarians. This is where we face Dravik, who is immune to any attacks. Using the shard, he traversed the domain of the dead and turned into a ghost. We could have sent him there without any stones, but Dravik chose a hard way. In his spiritual form, Dravik is invincible to physical damage. To deal with him, we need to get to the realm of ghosts too. Luckily, a local barbaric tribe helps us in our efforts. They hold a ritual for us to communicate with the dead and acquire their support. We do some errands and bury the fallen warriors properly, so ghost barbarians make us a passage into the domain of spirits and join us in our crusade there. Which reminds me of the Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls finale when Malthael settled in the realm of the dead so our arms couldn't hurt him. So to face him on equal terms, we had to get the blessing of the ghosts. In the other world, we face Skarn, Dravik and even his dead brother. Skarn keeps his promise to Dravik and his kin in a twisted way upon getting the shard, and merge their soul in a two-head monster. Skarn then escapes to his Hell's office while we stay to handle Siamese twins. After their demise, we hop into a portal after Skarn and enter the realm of damnation, the homeworld of the demon. We find a hostage angel lady named Virathael there and set her free with the magic of yl'nira. Virathael claims that there are more imprisoned angel sentinels in the realm of Skarn and urges us to help them. Saving angels one by one, we find out that Skarn used them to suck their divine powers out and direct this energy into pits of anguish to summon new demonic hordes. The more angelic energy Skarn sucks in, the larger his forces are. Using yl'nira, we set free all angels but one who is exhausted too much and succumbs to the corruption beyond saving, and destroy almost all pits but one. As soon as we start swinging the dagger to deliver the final blow to the final pit, Skarn jumps out of a portal and telekinetically grabs yl'nira. He thanks us for delivering the divine weapon right at his doorstep because he cannot touch it personally. According to him, the dagger contains more angelic energy than all those tortured sentinels combined. Skarn uses his telekinetic force to move yl'nira over the last pit, charges it to the limit and teleports back to his lair. So what do we have by now? Skarn has sucked out enough juice for the entire army, and unless stopped right away, he will conquer the realm of the mortals, cleanse them of their divinity with the shard, and leave only a diabolic essence. Simply kicking the door to Skarn's office open and finishing him is not an option, as the door is locked with magic. Picking the lock with yl'nira is also futile because Skarn seized the dagger. Fortunately, all angels, whom we freed earlier, come to the rescue and jointly open the passage to the lair of Skarn. While in Diablo's body, Skarn uses the shard to somehow raise the soul of Diablo from the depths of the abyss, subdue and absorb it, and acquire its powers. How is this connected to the lore of the series? Poorly. Between Diablo 2 and 3, one part of the soul of Diablo was contained in the Black Soul Stone by a spell of Adria, and another part in the body of Leah. Which one of those Skarn took under control with a shard? The main point of soul stones in this universe is to entomb a demonic essence in the stone eternally instead of letting it wander around and resurrect eventually. And should we have failed to entrap the soul of Diablo in the soul stone, not the one we thought of but still in the stone, in the final chapter of Diablo 2, then indeed it would simply roam around in the depths of hell. And in that case, there would have been no problem with its revival. All wandering demonic souls respawn in hell after some time. However, the entire Diablo 3 was revolving around the story twist that Diablo is locked down in the Black Soul Stone and cannot be reborn. Yet, in Diablo Immortal, a mobile game, some demon named Skarn, whom we have never heard about before, captures the soul of Diablo, which has come out of nowhere with a piece of the World Stone. I doubt Blizzard will ever be able to explain this in a non-ugly way. Skarn warns us that his demise will loosen control over the soul of Diablo enough for him to break free. However, we don't care, so we kill Skarn and release Diablo. Skarn's body drops yl'nira, which is weird because he couldn't touch it before and now it looks like he ate it if he dropped it. Diablo makes his move, Virathael intervenes, teleports us outside the realm of Skarn, and remains locked with the primeval one-on-one. If only there was a hero nearby that could slay a demon and save the lady, but there is none. So we wish Virathael luck and return to Cain with yl'nira and the shard. Deckard notices that our angelic dagger is corrupted by the demon. However, we have no other option left, so we stab the shard with the dagger, which results in their mutual destruction. For a moment, a visage of Skarn appears in the air for some reason, but no one seems to care. Now we know that the soul of Diablo is free from captivity. It will restore its body sooner or later, and we should prepare for a future encounter with the Lord of Terror. How it all will end, however, we already know from Diablo 3. And that's it. I'm not buying it. Alright, Diablo Immortal has certain objective boundaries that developers probably couldn't overcome. Say, from the beginning, mobile Diablo was meant to be made for the sake of monetization, I suppose. The dev team couldn't help turning the game into a milking machine, because I guess this was the basic idea for their game. This was its purpose. It is debatable how prudent this idea was, and in my opinion Blizzard could have made tremendous success in conquering the market should they have offered a more humane business model. They could have pushed away all those shameless, greedy mobile games that squeezed their player base dry. They could have set the example. But as far as we can see from the beginning, Diablo Immortal was meant not to challenge an army of mobile automatic milkers, but to lead it. The same applies to the mobility of mobile Diablo. The idea of putting gameplay of Diablo 3 in a smartphone is controversial on its own, and I personally never liked it. But if you develop a mobile game, it will be a mobile game, you can't avoid it. A captivating and engulfing atmosphere has always been a paramount feature of the Diablo series. It has always been dark and unknown at its core. Blackness is all around you, there are 10 floors of labyrinths above you and 10 more below you. Your equipment gives you an extra point to the radius of light. Do you know what's the architectural feature of Catholic churches? Unlike the Orthodox ones, for example, they are designed in a way so when you enter them, you feel tiny. They remind you of how insignificant you are compared to something bigger. They tower over you, they inspire awe. And such a cathedral stands in Tristram above all those labyrinths where the Horadrim imprisoned Diablo. I don't think Blizzard did it intentionally, and the cathedral is not that large in the game, to be honest. However, it is still a lucky and symbolic coincidence. Diablo is such an immense and unknown darkness, and you are small and alone in it. But everything changes as soon as you stick Diablo into a smartphone case. An engulfing feature of the game is now gone. You tower over it. It is small, it is in your hands. You're in control now, putting Diablo in your pocket and taking it out. Diablo has always been a combination of atmosphere and grinding. Diablo Immortal is just about grinding. But yes, that loss of atmosphere is mostly an unavoidable feature of the mobile genre. I don't think devs had any other choice except for not making a mobile game at all. Yet I doubt there were objective reasons for Blizzard to come up with a crappy storyline for Diablo Immortal. If I were Blizzard, one of the flagships in game dev, and had to make a game with unpleasant monetization for a platform that upsets my player base for reasons beyond my control, I would do my best to ensure that things I could control were on top. Diablo Immortal is simply boring to play. Its storyline is far-fetched, characters act unnaturally for this universe, and even the inclusion of such NPCs as Charcy and Flavi isn't exciting at all. Everything in this game is incredibly flat and artificial. Whatever happened in it, I couldn't care less what would come next. And this comes from a person who's beaten all other Diablo games for many times. Alright, creating interesting stories is never an easy task, but that's not the bottom of the hole. In 2019, at BlizzCon, when Diablo 4 was announced, with my own eyes I saw a person on stage who claimed to be working for Blizzard as some sanctuary archivist in charge of its lore. Blizzard has a special employee who follows the story of their games. Then what was this nonsense about Tyrael who wouldn't lend his sword to save Sanctuary from demons? He didn't even have to give the sword away, just swing it 4 times to crush 4 shards. But no, Tyrael couldn't do this. Of course he couldn't, because he was dead. Not because he was greedy. What's wrong with you? That is not even a fanfiction level, and it wasn't the fault of one person. A lot of people were responsible for developing the game. They all let it happen. Imagine how they didn't care about what was going on in their own game. How come has Deckard Cain forgotten that recently in the finale of Diablo 2 he joined us in crushing the shards of the World Stone on the Hellforge, and we didn't use any angelic weapons, though we had an Archangel on our team. In Diablo Immortal, Cain seems to forget all this, so he sends us on a desert trip searching for knowledge on how to break shards, and as a result we find out that only angelic weaponry is suitable for destroying the fragments. And I have real doubts about the very existence of the Immortals. First of all, the World Stone protected Sanctuary from demons for a long time. From the beginning, Sanctuary was meant to be the place concealed by the stone, so there was no need to fight back evil. Eventually the demons got to Sanctuary, but it happened way past the moment when Nephilims shrank to immense size. Then why would Daedessa found the Order of the Immortals during the Age of Nephilims? Back in those days, Sanctuary was free of demonkind. They knew nothing of our realm and didn't pose a threat. Besides, Sanctuary has already had special anti-evil forces, the Haradrim. And yes, we've met them before, but I don't recall any of the Immortals in other Diablo installments. The ancient faction that preceded the entire humanity and was created just to defend our realm from demons could at least make a brief introduction during our long toil of battling corruption, like when we fought Diablo for the first time, and for the second time, and when we slain Mephisto, Baal, and Dariel and Duriel. I guess Immortals were too busy dealing with the shadows, not this trivial stuff. We know a lot about all major battles of Sanctuary dwellers with the evil, yet there were no Immortals there. In Diablo Immortal, the Immortals were simply pasted in hindsight. The summoning of Diablo in the finale fits the same narrative. The soul of Diablo cannot roam around hell, it is contained in the Black Soulstone. Though we didn't know anything about the Black Soulstone until the release of Diablo 3, demonic souls were locked down in soulstones for a reason, so that they couldn't be reborn with time or resurrected within the snap of a finger, to prevent some smartass from calling for a great incarnation of evil under his banner. Also, there was no Diablo body left after the end of Diablo 2. Just like in the finale of Diablo 1, the dead body of Diablo shrank to the form of its original owner, in this case it was Aiden, and then it was cremated. We know that from Book of Cain, and now you're telling me that the body of Diablo was just left unattended and found by Skarn. Diablo Immortal single-handedly makes the story of the entire series incoherent. It falls apart from all these inconsistencies and discrepancies. In Diablo 3, scriptwriters barely managed to sew a new story to the old one, and in Diablo Immortal their comrades cut through these seams with a butcher's cleaver. Then why did you need a person designated to oversee the lore of Diablo? He either doesn't do much or you don't listen to him. In both ways, I offer myself to this position. Worst case scenario is that you can keep ignoring me instead of him with the same result. What's also important, I don't believe that Diablo Immortal has enough gravity, enough significance to be entitled to reshape the existing lore. It's a mobile spin-off. Mobile spin-offs shouldn't dominate the whole series. I can relate to the reason why retcons were introduced in Diablo 3. That was a new full-sized game where it was necessary to continue a generally completed story. But Diablo Immortal is neither full-sized, nor it is completely new. It is somewhat a port of Diablo 3. And even it didn't have to advance the story, the game was meant to fill the vacuum between the two other installments. This alone means a tremendous room when writing a script. You don't even have to be very resourceful with it. Nonetheless, Diablo Immortal has trampled on the canon of Diablo with absolute neglect and even despisal. Blizzard put zero efforts into embedding this game into an existing context. And what this tyranny comes from a mobile spin-off, and in turn came to the company and began to give out instructions. On the bright side, I have no complaints about the graphics and gameplay. The game looks and feels good, and should you forget about the monetization, the plot, and the very idea of porting Diablo 3 to a smartphone, this is a great Diablo 3 port for a smartphone. The pace and mechanics of Diablo Immortal are well adapted to simplified controls on a small screen, a character is easy to handle and their movements are more accurate than one could expect from mobile Diablo. It's even a bit upsetting that such decent gameplay was given to a not quite decent game. The influence of money on the strength of a character is so high that the PvP between a free-to-play gamer and a pay-to-win gamer turns into a comedy, and the game itself becomes a way to show off one's wallet size. As far as I can judge from the experience of other players, Diablo Immortal is designed in such a fashion that even after pouring in some real money, one cannot reach the limit and is free to carry on pouring more. This is the bottomless flask for donations. If you feel like spending time on something useless, I recommend this channel over Diablo Immortal. I can give you its 3 advantages over Diablo Immortal right away. First, its content is better. Second, you won't be screwed by someone who paid me. Third, at least I follow the lore of the Diablo series. Thank you for staying a while and listening. Please subscribe because so many more videos are coming. Stay tuned, have fun, and see you soon.